I never thought a single knock at the door could unravel everything I'd built over 20 years of careful solitude. It was Bryson who answered, his voice cracking with that boyish enthusiasm he still carried at 19, flinging the door wide to let in the storm and Jackson with it. But when Jackson stepped inside, dripping wet from the Seattle downpour, his eyes locked on mine across the living room, and he whispered, "Mr. Harlan, I can't do this anymore." The world tilted on its axis, and I felt the first crack in the armor I'd worn since my wife left us a decade ago. That night, as thunder rolled over the Puget Sound like an accusation, Jackson didn't just stay over. He shattered the fragile peace of our home, forcing me to confront the shadows I'd buried deep. Bryson and I had always been a team, just the two of us against the relentless gray skies of the Pacific Northwest. After Elena walked out, citing my emotional unavailability as the final straw, I threw myself into raising him. Mornings were for burnt toast and rushed school runs. Evenings for little league games and awkward talks about girls that never quite landed. Bryson grew into a lanky kid with my dark curls and his mother's sharp wit, the kind of boy who collected stray cats and dreamed of escaping to California for film school. He was my anchor, the reason I kept the old Victorian in Capitol Hill standing, even as the mortgage gnawed at my freelance graphic design gigs. Jackson entered our lives like a rogue wave 3 years ago, crashing into Bryson's freshman dorm at the University of Washington. They met in a screenwriting class, bonded over bad horror flicks and a shared hatred for pretentious professors. Jackson was the Ian to Bryson's young, blonde, broad-shouldered, with a laugh that echoed like summer thunder and eyes the color of Lake Washington on a clear day. He was from Portland originally, a transplant like so many in this city of dreamers and dropouts, studying environmental science but secretly scribbling poetry in the margins of his textbooks. Bryson brought him home for Thanksgiving that first year, and Jackson fit like he'd always been there, charming my skeptical aunt with stories of urban foraging and helping me fix the leaky faucet without being asked. I liked him immediately in that distant paternal way. He was polite, called me Mr. Harlan, even after I insisted on Alex, and had a quiet intensity that reminded me of myself at that age, before life sanded down the edges. Bryson adored him, the way only best friends can. Late-night gaming sessions that spilled into our kitchen for microwave burritos, road trips to Olympic National Park where they'd hike until their legs gave out, whispering secrets under the stars that I pretended not to overhear. Jackson became a fixture, crashing on our couch after study marathons, his sleeping bag unrolled like an unspoken invitation to family. But lately, something had shifted. Bryson noticed it first during their junior year. Jackson's texts grew sporadic, his visits laced with a heaviness that hung in the air like fog off the sound. "He's going through some stuff." Bryson shrugged it off one night over pizza, his mouth full of pepperoni. "Family drama back home. Dad's on his third marriage, Mom's in denial." I nodded, pouring us both a soda, but my gut twisted. Jackson's smiles didn't reach his eyes anymore, and when he looked at me, really looked, it felt like he was searching for something I wasn't sure I could give. That rainy Friday in October, Bryson texted me from campus. "Jax needs a place tonight. Bad breakup. Can he crash?" I replied yes without hesitation, the house too empty since Bryson started commuting full-time. By 8, the storm had settled in, wind whipping the maple leaves against the windows like frantic Morse code. Bryson arrived first, soaked and apologetic, dumping his backpack by the door. "Thanks, Dad. He's a mess. Some girl from his bio lab, but I think it's more than that." Jackson showed up 20 minutes later, hood pulled low, knuckles white on the strap of his duffel. He looked smaller somehow, the rain plastering his shirt to his frame, revealing the faint outline of tattoos snaking up his arms. Anchors and waves, I'd glimpsed them once at the beach. "Mr. Harlan," he said, voice rough as gravel, avoiding my gaze as he toed off his sneakers. Bryson clapped him on the back, steering him toward the guest room upstairs, but Jackson paused in the hallway, his shoulders slumping. "Actually, can I talk to you? Just for a sec." Bryson raised an eyebrow but waved it off. "I'll heat up leftovers. Don't bore him with your emo crap, Jax." He bounded up the stairs, leaving us in the dim foyer, the only light from the street lamp filtering through the frosted glass. I gestured to the living room, the worn leather couch still bearing the indent from 1,000 movie nights. "What's going on, kid?" Bryson said breakup. Jackson sank into the armchair, rubbing his palms on his jeans, the fabric dark with damp. Yeah, sort of. He exhaled sharply, like the words were barbed wire in his throat. It's not a girl, though. Never has been. The admission hung there, heavy and electric, the storm outside mirroring the one brewing in his eyes. I froze, my mind racing to connect dots I'd willfully ignored. The way he'd linger in the kitchen while Bryson showered, the poetry Bryson once showed me, raw verses about hidden oceans and unspoken storms. Before I could respond, he leaned forward, elbows on knees, and the dam broke. I can't keep pretending, Alex. Not with him. Not with anyone. His voice cracked on my name, the first time he'd used it unprompted, and it landed like a spark on dry tinder. I opened my mouth to offer the standard platitudes. It's okay, you're safe here. But he kept going, words tumbling out in a rush. Bryson's my best friend, but he doesn't see me. No one does. Except, maybe you. The room spun. Me? The divorced dad in faded husky sweatshirts, who hadn't dated since Elena, who buried his own buried truths under layers of routine and restraint. I was 47, a ghost in my own life, content with solitude until it wasn't enough anymore. And Jackson, 22, vibrant, aching, saw through it all? Jackson, My voice trailed off, traitorous heart pounding against my ribs. He stood abruptly, pacing to the window, fists clenched. Forget it. Stupid idea. But the thunderclaps silenced him, lightning fracturing the sky, and in that flash, his face was etched in silver. Vulnerable, beautiful, broken. He turned back, eyes glistening. Do you ever feel like you're drowning on dry land? Like the world's moving, but you're stuck, holding your breath. I did. God, I did. Elena had called it depression. I'd called it survival. But saying it aloud felt like betrayal to Bryson, to the man I'd pretended to be. Every damn day, I admitted, the words slipping free before I could cage them. We stood there, inches apart now, the air thick with rain scent and revelation, until footsteps thumped down the stairs. Dinner's ready, Bryson called, oblivious, plate in hand. Jackson jerked back, mask snapping into place, but the damage was done. That night, as I lay awake listening to the patter on the roof, the house felt alive with possibilities I'd long ago deemed impossible. And terrified. The next morning dawned brittle and bright, the storm's remnants glittering on the evergreens like shattered glass. Bryson was up first, as always, clattering in the kitchen for coffee and cereal. I shuffled in, rubbing sleep from my eyes, the weight of last night's confession pressing on my chest like an unpinned grenade. Jackson emerged last, hair tousled, wearing one of Bryson's old band tees that hung loose on his frame. "Morning, Mr. H," he mumbled, avoiding my gaze as he poured bran flakes, but his fingers brushed mine on the milk carton. Accidental, electric. Bryson, bless his oblivious heart, launched into a monologue about their upcoming script project. Something about eco-horror in the Cascades. Jax, you gotta nail that monologue. Make it gut-wrenching. Like that scene in Hereditary. Jackson nodded, forcing a grin, but his eyes flicked to me, a silent plea woven into the subtext. I busied myself with toast, burning it black, my mind replaying his words. Except maybe you. We spent the day like any other. Laundry folding into a Tetris game on the couch, a pickup basketball game at the park where Bryson schooled us both, laughter echoing off the chain-link fence. But undercurrents pulled at me. Jackson's touches lingered. A hand on my shoulder during a free throw, steadying me. His knee bumping mine under the coffee table as we binge-watched The Last of Us. Each contact was a spark, innocent to Bryson but loaded for me, stirring embers I'd extinguished years ago. By evening, the facade cracked again. Bryson had a study group, kissing my cheek with a "Don't wait up, Dad," before vanishing into the drizzle. The house settled into quiet, just Jackson and me, the clock ticking like a countdown. He wandered into the den where I was sketching logos on my tablet, the fire crackling low in the grate. "Mind if I join?" He dropped onto the rug, back against the couch, legs stretched out. "Not at all." I set the tablet aside, the unspoken hanging between us. He pulled a notebook from his bag, scribbling furiously, then tore out a page and slid it over. Ode to the Lighthouse Keeper. The title read, verses spilling like tide pools. You stand against the gale, beam-cutting fog, / guiding ships you never board, / what if one night, the sea whispers back, / salt on your lips, waves in your veins, / would you dive, or douse the light? My throat tightened. This is powerful. Understatement of the century. It was him, raw and reaching, the subtext screaming what the surface dared not. He looked up, firelight dancing in his eyes. It's about seeing someone, really seeing them when no one else does, like how you see Bryson. Not just the screw-up kid, but the artist starving for air. Pause heavy as anchor chain. And maybe, how I wish someone saw me that way. The room shrank. I could smell his soap, clean and cedar sharp, feel the heat radiating from his skin. Jackson, I started, voice low. You're 22. I'm 47. He finished, not mocking, just stating. Old enough to know better, young enough to feel it all. He shifted closer, notebook forgotten, his hand finding mine on the cushion. Not grabbing, offering. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me you don't feel this pull. Like gravity gone haywire. I couldn't. Instead, I traced the veins on his wrist, the ink of his tattoos peeking like secrets. This could destroy everything? I whispered, thinking of Bryson, of the life we'd carved from wreckage. But in that moment, with the fire popping and the world outside forgotten, it felt like salvation. We talked until the logs crumbled to embers, about his fractured family, the closet he'd outgrown in high school only to rebuild in college, about my marriage's slow erosion, the affairs I suspected but never confronted, the queerness I'd buried under straight-laced normalcy because Elena demanded it, because Bryson needed stability. I thought I was done with all that. I confessed, the words foreign on my tongue. Thought love was a one-time deal. Jackson smiled, soft and sad. Love's not a deal, Alex. It's a storm. You don't sign up, you weather it. He leaned in, forehead to mine, breath mingling, and for a heartbeat, I let myself imagine it. Us, tangled in possibility, no sun or society to judge. The door slammed upstairs, Bryson home early. We sprang apart, hearts hammering, the notebook fluttering to the floor like a fallen flag. Who wants pizza? Bryson yelled, oblivious as ever, and the spell shattered. But as Jackson retrieved the page, his fingers lingering on mine one last time, I knew the storm had only just begun. 2 weeks blurred into a haze of stolen glances and seismic shifts. Bryson, buried in midterms, didn't notice how Jackson started showing up without pretense. Study breaks that stretched into dinners, his duffel a permanent fixture in the hall closet. We'd fall into rhythms. Me cooking pasta while he chopped onions, tears mixing with laughter over botched recipes. Walks along the Burke-Gilman Trail at dusk, shoulders brushing as we dodged joggers, the city lights winking like conspirators. It was romance in the margins, tender and terrifying. No grand gestures, just the brush of his hand in the dishwasher suds. The way he'd hum old Fleet Foxes tunes while I drove us to the market, windows down to taste the salt air. Jackson opened me like a long-shuttered window, air rushing in with questions I dodged for decades. What do you want, Alex? Not for Bryson, for you? He'd ask over late-night scotch, just a splash, nothing reckless. His voice a lifeline in the dark. I wanted this, the ache of wanting, the thrill of being seen. But guilt gnawed at the edges, sharp as salmon bones. Bryson was my world, and Jackson his shadow. How could I claim the light without eclipsing them both? Yet every time Jackson's eyes met mine across the breakfast table, soft with unspoken promises, the doubt crumbled. We were careful, achingly so. Kisses stolen in the garage, whispered confessions under the covers when Bryson crashed early. It felt like a secret garden, blooming fierce against the November chill. Then came the betrayal, swift as a Puget Sound squall. It was Thanksgiving Eve, the house redolent with turkey stock and Bryson's half-hearted pie attempts. Jackson had insisted on helping, his family holiday a non-starter. His dad off in Vegas with wife number 3, Mom hosting a pity party in Portland. Let me earn my keep. He'd grinned, flour-dusted and domestic, tying an apron over his jeans like it was the most natural thing. Bryson was in high spirits, regaling us with tales of campus drama. But midway through peeling potatoes, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, face paling. What the hell? He stalked to the living room, voice rising. Jackson and I exchanged looks, worry etching lines around his mouth, and followed quietly. There, on the couch, Bryson scrolled furiously, jaw set. You two think I'm blind? He snapped, not looking up. My stomach plummeted. Texts from Jax's phone. Synced to his laptop last week. Can't stop thinking about your hands. Last night was everything. Jesus, Deji. The air evacuated the room. Jackson's face drained of color. Hand reaching for Bryson. Bry, wait. It's not. Not what? You're screwing my dad. The word landed like a slap, raw and irretrievable. Bryson's eyes, so like Elena's, blazed with hurt. How long? God, is this why you've been weird? Ditching me for family dinners. I stepped forward, voice steady despite the quake inside. Bryson, listen. No. He hurled the phone, screen cracking against the wall. You both lied. My best friend and my father. What? Was I just the convenient cover? Tears streaked his cheeks, betrayal twisting his features into something unrecognizable. He grabbed his jacket, storming for the door. Don't follow me. The slam echoed like finality. Jackson crumpled to the floor, sobs racking his frame. I didn't mean. I love him, Alex. Like family. But you. He looked up, eyes shattered glass. This is my fault. I pushed too hard. I knelt beside him, pulling him close, the scent of sage and sorrow filling my lungs. We both did. But as I held him, the pieces of our fragile world lay scattered, and for the first time, I wondered if the storm would spare any of us. The days that followed were a funeral procession through fog-shrouded streets. Bryson vanished into campus, texts unanswered, voicemails piling like unanswered prayers. Give him space, I told myself, pacing the empty house, but space felt like abandonment. Jackson moved like a ghost, sleeping on the couch, his notebook untouched. We'd sit in silence, hands clasped across the kitchen table, the unspoken weight of what now, pressing down. I reached out to Elena first, a Hail Mary to the woman who'd ghosted us for a decade. Your son's spiraling. I left on her machine, voice cracking. She called back that night, voice cool as autumn rain. You always were blind to his needs, Alex. Fix it yourself. No sympathy, just the old indictment. Stung, but it fueled me. I drove to UW the next dawn, staking out the quad until Bryson emerged from a lecture hall, hood up against the drizzle. Dad. His voice was flat, eyes red-rimmed. We walked to the coffee cart, steam curling like smoke signals. Why him? Of all people. Honesty was the only path left. Because he saw me, Bry. The parts one hid, even from you. Started innocent, then. It wasn't. I swallowed hard. But you're my son. First. Always. If this costs us, I'll end it. He stirred his latte, foam swirling like chaos. It's not just you. Jax, he's been my rock since Mom. And now? Feels like he chose you over me. The vulnerability cracked his armor, and he deflated. I miss him, but I hate him too. We talked for hours, raw and ragged, peeling back layers of resentment I'd never seen. Bryson's anger wasn't just betrayal. It was fear of losing his constance in a world that already felt unmoored. I came out last year, he admitted finally, voice small. To the group, not you. Thought you'd freak. My heart fractured. Never. Bry, The words lodged, but his eyes softened, understanding dawning. Proud. So damn proud. He nodded, tentative truce forming. Bring him. We hashed this out. All of us. Jackson arrived that evening, tentative as a deer in headlights, duffel slung over his shoulder like armor. The living room felt like a courtroom, fire roaring defiance against the chill. Bryson sat rigid on the armchair. I took the couch's edge. Jackson perched on the ottoman, hands twisting. I'm sorry, Jackson started, voice steady despite the tremor. For lying, for blurring lines. Bry, you're my brother in all but blood. I never meant to hurt you. Tears welled, but he held them. And Alex, this thing between us, it blindsided me. But if it breaks us, I'll walk. Bryson leaned forward, elbows on knees, mirroring his friend unconsciously. It already did, but I get it. Kinda. Loving someone's scary as hell. A ghost of a smile. Just, no more secrets. And Jax? Don't ditch me for kitchen makeouts. Laughter bubbled, brittle but real, shattering the ice. We talked until midnight. Fears unpacked, boundaries redrawn. No easy fixes, but threads of forgiveness weaving through the rips. Jackson and I, we agreed to pause, to let the dust settle, hands brushing in silent vow. As Bryson headed to bed, clapping Jackson's shoulder with rough affection, I caught my son's eye. "Love you, Dad," he said simply, and it mended something deep. In the quiet aftermath, Jackson lingered by the door, rain tapping a gentle rhythm. "Think we can rebuild?" he asked, thumb tracing my jaw. I pulled him close, foreheads touching, the world vast and waiting. Storms pass, we weather them together. And in that breath, breathless no more, I believed it. Confused, perhaps, but alive with hope. The American dream not of picket fences, but of hearts brave enough to bend.